Dracula crest.
Yes, Doctor. I am Count Dracula. But I'm known to the outside world as Baron Latos. You see, before you a man who has lived for centuries, kept alive by the blood of innocent people.
Where are we?
You're in the middle, between the two. The real and the shadow. Right now you're in a kind of a limbo. You're neither here nor there.
Where are we?
Between light and shadow.
Hey gang, welcome to Between Light and Shadow, a Twilight Zone podcast. This is a special bonus episode for your Halloween listening pleasure. Or pain, I guess, depending on what you're into. Now, if you've listened to this week's regular episode, you heard Derek M. Koch of Monster Kid Radio help me discuss The Howling Man. It was a nice 15-minute segment, but what you don't know is that the actual conversation was approximately 3 times longer. Being the monster kids that Derek and I are, we frequently went off topic to discuss non-Twilight Zone things. So I trimmed it down to keep things Twilight Zone specific for the podcast. But man, I hate to let all that great Derek M. Koch content go to waste. So I'm going to present it here in all its unedited and unwashed glory. Not gonna lie, I'm a bit nervous releasing this, but it has nothing to do with Derek. He's a podcasting pro, so he knows how to remain engaging and interesting. No, kids, my nervousness has everything to do with me. As y'all know, I'm new to this podcasting thing. I'm a total amateur. And I'm also completely inexperienced when it comes to interviewing. Now, Derek was a total sweetheart about it, but the truth is, I sound like a drooling idiot throughout most of this conversation. It's a testament to Derek's skills as a conversationalist that it's even listenable at all. So with that caveat, I present to you my chat with the one, the only Derek M. Koch of Monster Kid Radio. Raw and unedited. Enjoy.
You sound great.
Loud enough?
Yeah?
Okay. So I guess we'll do mine first if that's fine.
Sure, yeah. Let's do it. Yeah, no problem.
Like I said, it's just a segment.
Sure.
Ask you a couple things, and we're going to talk a little bit about the episode.
Sure.
Did you watch the episode?
Oh, shit. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, I did.
Okay. So call me back in half an hour.
Okay.
You watched it. Okay.
It was The Howling Man, right? I did do the right one? Okay, good.
Yes, that is the
Okay.
one. Okay, so I'll just do my little lead in.
Sure.
You ready? And we'll just jump into it. And I can always trim it later if I have to.
Sure. Yeah.
Which
no
usually
problem,
means trimming myself. That's usually what the trimming is. But
no worries.
all right. Just one. I want to do one other thing really quick. Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm waiting for my Where I had notes. I'm such an amateur. This is embarrassing.
Oh, come on now.
Okay. So I'm a huge fan of the old Universal horror films. Hang on.
Take two.
Oh my God. Yeah, I'm kind of froggy this morning. I don't know what's going on.
Hey, me too, man. Yeah, there's been a lot of clearing of the throat and riding the mute button over here. So,
Oh no, don't do that. It adds humanity to it.
oh, okay.
It's more raw. All right. Now, like I've said before, I'm a huge fan of the old Universal horror films, but a friend of mine is an even bigger fan. Derek M. Koch runs the Monster Kid Radio podcast, which won a coveted Rondo Award in 2015. So in the deep, dark sea of podcasts, well, it's the real deal. He's the real deal. So check out Monster Kid Radio. In the meantime, I am happy and honored to have Derek here with me to talk a little bit about The Howling Man. Derek, welcome to Between Light and Shadow.
Hey, thanks for having me, and thanks for your kind words. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
MKR, where are you at in that? How long have you been doing that?
You know, I've been asked that a lot recently, and I think it's about 3 years. I do know that I hit episode 300 at the very end of this year. I believe it's the final episode of December. If I keep doing a show every week, we'll be hitting episode 300. I don't know what we're doing for episode 300 yet. I want to do something special, but I don't know what yet.
Wow, that is crazy. You know, this is for my 5th episode. So those kinds of numbers are terrifying. And I can't even imagine making it that far, but I guess we'll see.
It kind of snuck up on me. I wasn't, well, honestly, I kind of cheated a little bit at the very beginning, because when I first launched MKR, I was doing 2 episodes a week. Mm-hmm. I would take the conversation that I had with whoever about whatever movie and cut it in half and do an episode on Tuesday and Thursday. Oh, okay. Eventually, I just ended up taking that conversation and making it just one longer episode anyway, so people still got the same content. I was just doing it once a week instead of splitting it in half. Oh, okay. But that said, I mean, still, 300 episodes, I got to do something. So if anybody's got any ideas,
yeah, I'll put my feelers out.
There you go.
I don't have feelers, but
I have a feeling. But you said you're only on episode 5.
Yeah,
I've been listening. It's solid work, dude.
Well, it's the 5th real thing. I did that thing in September where there were mini episodes, which was a bit controversial. Some people did not like that, which
really,
I thought it was funny that anybody would actually complain about a podcast. I just thought,
oh, welcome to the dark sea of podcasting, like you said.
I thought it's brand new. I don't know what I'm doing, and you're actually gonna like tear it down. I mean, I had a really savage iTunes review. That's there for anyone that wants to see it. And this guy just relentlessly is just dissing my podcast. It's I haven't even really started it yet.
Wow. Well, it's everybody's going to have their own favorites and their own opinions about podcasting. As a podcaster now, what goes into it. Oh, and I think maybe that's why I liked your prelude or your lead up episodes, is because I have been podcasting for so long, because I am somebody who's been, creating content about these things that I love so much, and the journey that I went through to get here. Mm-hmm. I saw a lot of parallels, and I just really enjoyed it. So, I don't know if that helps offset this iTunes review or not, but I dug it.
It does. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, but it's funny how that one negative thing just keeps sticking out. And I'm trying to ignore it, but
that's all you can do.
That's all you can do. So Monster Kid Radio won a Rondo, which if listeners aren't aware of what that is, the Rondo Awards are done yearly. It covers movies, TV shows, books, and podcasts. And I don't know if you're privy to this. Do they give the final numbers, how many votes you had versus the competition?
I've never seen those. Okay. I don't know if there's another group or a committee that counts these things or what. I don't know what the final numbers are. So I really don't know. I think what happened, the best that I can gather is when the winners are announced, David Colton, who is the man behind the whole thing, he'll announce the winner, but then he'll also announce the runners up and the honorable mentions. So you kind of get a ranking there, but you don't get the actual numbers, which is fine.
I want that thing. I'm not gonna lie. I want that damn thing. And when I had all these delays over the last year getting it started, I thought, well, no, I missed that year.
It's a cool little award. I've got it sitting up on my bookshelf in my living room over here. It is an actual physical award. It's not just one of these things where a website says you're the best. I mean, it's an actual award. It's based on a sculpt by. Oh man, why am I drawing a blank? Oh, Monster Kids are gonna. It's early, listeners. I haven't had any coffee yet, so please forgive me. Carrie Gamble.
Okay.
Wow. I've even had him on my show. Carrie, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Oh, no. No, it's an actual physical award. It's pretty cool.
Oh,
how the resources are put together to put this thing on, I don't know where the money comes from because it's open to everybody. If you get nominated, great. And that's just an honor in itself.
Oh, sure.
I've been on the ballot for my various shows over the years. This was my first win, and it was pretty humbling. Humbling.
That's did you actually go, because there's a ceremony, right?
There is. It's back east, and I was not able to go. I did send in an acceptance video, however, and I believe it's on my YouTube channel. So if you look at Monster Kid Radio on YouTube, you might find my acceptance video there.
My friend Dave Scow, who won his Creature book, or actually his Outer Limits book, but then he actually helped Tom Weaver with his Creature book,
which is a great book.
Oh, it is a great book. He posted some pictures on Facebook. Dave Scow, that is. He had gone to the thing. He wore a tux, and I just thought that was so awesome. I just love that.
I would love to get out there. Larry Underwood, Dr. Gangrene, the horror host, he has gone repeatedly. I mean, he's won a couple of rondos over the years himself, and he tells me how awesome that convention is overall. Not just the ceremony, but the actual convention it's part of, which is just something I've never had a chance to do, but I would love to get out there someday.
So you have it. It's sitting in your living room. I have this fantasy of having my desk, and it just sits there, and it just looks at me. I just feel like that would be oddly inspiring. I don't know why. All right, so The Howling Man. This is a season 2 episode. So by now, the Twilight Zone had been on for a little while. I don't know if it was at the height of its popularity. It probably wasn't, because I think that came later after it was already off. But the reason I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this one, Derek, is because, well, A, I'm covering it for Halloween. But B, there are aspects of this episode that I get a really strong Universal horror vibe off of. And first and foremost, the location. Because we're in this monastery somewhere in Europe. And it felt to me like a Frankenstein movie. And I just wanted to get your take on that.
Sure. No, it definitely feels like, even though it's rooted in the real world, which is something that the Universal films or even the Hammer films never really tried to do. They may have mentioned in passing, we're in Europe, but in The Howling Man, I mean, it's anchored in reality. That said, it still has that pseudo-European nebulous gothic feel that the earlier Universal monster movies had, whether it's Frankenstein or Dracula. And I did respond to that quite a bit. Frankenstein's castle, sure, I could see an analog here or a comparison here. I would even go as far as saying I could see part of castle, the Dracula aesthetic here as well. It definitely feels more like a 30s Universal than, say, like the late 50s.
Yes, definitely.
But it has that vibe for sure.
Yeah. Now, obviously, our villain here is the devil. And the devil's, of course, been depicted many times, many different ways over the years in TV and film. But he doesn't show up in any Universal classics, does he? I was trying to think back.
Oh, man. There's talk of like devil worship in The Black Cat.
Right.
Oh, man. I can't think of anything in which the devil himself actually shows up.
Wasn't he one of Dr. Pretorius's miniature?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
The little figures that Pretorius has in Bride of Frankenstein. I'm sure there's somebody there dressed up. Yeah. No, I can see him in my mind's eye right now.
Okay. Kind of a side note. I had this idea a few years back for a pseudo Universal horror classic based on Dr. Pretorius, and it would kind of take place alongside of Bride of Frankenstein a little bit, where there would be some overlap with the lab exploding and everything, but Pretorius survives and he's got the bride in tow. So there's this whole side thing that happens where the bride is still alive, well, quote unquote alive. I wrote that. I don't have to find that. I wrote that down somewhere. For like 2 weeks, I thought that was like the greatest idea ever. Like, I'm going to make this movie. It's going to be like an homage. It's going to be in black and white. It's going to be, and then I lost track of it. I've been through a lot of computers, so I lose a lot of things, even though I try to be really good about backing up.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I've had that problem myself. Pretorius is a solid villain in the entry of Universal monsters and monster movies. There was a series of novels that Dark Horse did back in, I want to say 2007. They had the license to Universal, and they put out like 5 or 6 novels, and each novel was about one of the monsters, like another adventure. Okay. There was a Frankenstein novel in which he meets Jack the Ripper. The monster meets Jack the Ripper. There was a Dracula novel. There was a Creature from the Black Lagoon novel that involved time travel. And there was a book called Pandora's Bride. It was about the bride of Frankenstein. I personally wasn't a huge fan of it, but Dr. Pretorius does have a bigger role in that. The bride herself, as well as some of the little creatures from Pretorius's menagerie, are in there as well as characters doing things. So, I mean, there have been some play with those characters, but man, Pretorius is so good.
Yeah, it's a shame that he kind of, and the same with the bride, because the bride is, to me, just very, it's kind of, that softer, prettier Universal monster, and it's but I love her. I wish there was more of her, because every other major monster shows up again and again, except the Phantom, but I don't know.
Well, yeah.
But
I mean, she's iconic, for a movie named after her. She's in the movie for what, less than 5 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Or I haven't actually done the actual timing, but a few years ago, my wife was going to dress up as the bride for, Halloween, and I wanted to show her the scene from the film, and we were both shocked at the time because that was the first time we actually sat down to look for her in the movie, and well, she's just at the end, and that's that.
It's too bad.
Yeah.
But so, did you get the Blu-ray set that they just put out of the Frankenstein movies?
Not the current set. I have the box set they put out a few years ago,
mm-hmm.
Of the Blu-rays of every one of the monsters. The Frankenstein, the Creature. It has Creature in 3D, but I don't have a 3D Blu-ray player, so I can't watch that. But I can still watch the movie itself. I have. Oh, do you?
And it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Sure. Rub it in. Okay.
No, I'm not rubbing it. I'm just saying. I mean, it's really cool to see it, not just in 3D, because I've done that. We saw that together once.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
But in high def, it's pretty awesome. It looks great.
So I don't have those individual box sets that have come out just this past year. Do you have any of them? Are they worth picking up?
I do. I got them. They did Frankenstein and they did the Wolfman.
Okay.
So all the Frankenstein films, beyond the original and Bride, which are in that earlier set. So now you get Son of Frankenstein, Ghost, House of versus all of the Frankenstein films.
The whole shebang, all in blue?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
And it's really, impressive. They really did some nice restoration, because Son of Frankenstein in particular looks crazy good. It's almost shocking how good that looks. The only downside, which I personally don't think is a downside, but this kind of was an ongoing debate on the home theater forum, was there's a lot of overlap, because what they've done with these Blu-ray sets is the same thing they did with the DVD sets that they put out like a year or two ago, where the Frankenstein set has all the Frankenstein movies, which includes movies that have the other. So like, for example, like House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. Those movies also appear on the Wolfman set, because the Wolfman set has all the movies with the Wolfman.
Okay.
So you end up getting the same movies across multiple sets, which to me isn't a bad thing, because I feel like these are priced really reasonable anyway. So it's kind of like, So what? So you have, 2 copies of House of Dracula. Why is that a bad thing?
Sure, it's not like we haven't double dipped before. Come on.
I've been buying these movies repeatedly for a long time. So,
That was actually something that you mentioned regarding the Twilight Zone stuff, that you'd bought it on VHS, DVD, all these different formats, and in your lead up to the actual show itself. And every time you were talking about that, I was just nodding along, because how many times, have I bought the Universal Monster movies on VHS, on DVD, as DVD double features, as Blu-ray, as this new Blu-ray. I will buy these movies. I'm hooked. It's like an addiction.
It is.
Keep it coming, man.
yes, and I'm not too upset about it. So,
No. Yeah, me neither.
I really wish that I had been collecting them in the VHS days, though, because those covers are ridiculous. I went like scouring the internet one day, just looking for like high res scans of those boxes. I got a bunch of them.
Oh, they're fantastic.
I love those so much. Some guy has a video on YouTube where he just has them all and he's just filming them. It's like looking at an art gallery, just kind of browsing this guy's collection. And they're so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We actually are talking about the Twilight Zone here.
We're supposed to be. That's what I thought we were doing.
Yeah.
See, this is what happens when a couple of monster kids start talking.
Mm-hmm.
We're supposed to talk about the Twilight Zone, and now we're talking about Dr. Pretorius. How did that happen?
I don't know. That's odd. Oh, okay. I am going to ask you one more Monster Kid Radio question.
Okay, no, please feel free. Yeah.
Are there any classic Universal horror films that you have not covered? I mean, it seems like in 300 episodes or close to 300, you have to have hit them all.
Okay, so this is actually, listeners, kind of behind the podcasting curtain. Craig and I were talking about, is there a list of all the movies that I've covered? And I actually never made one. I probably should. With up to 300 episodes coming, I probably ought to keep track of what I've covered and what I've not and that sort of thing. But I don't think I've actually talked about Revenge of the Creature proper.
Really?
On the show.
Oh,
I love that movie, but I haven't really covered that one too much. Some of the later Universal 50s movies haven't really tackled too much of. Yeah, let's see. I did Son of Dracula. We actually crashed Dracula's Daughter at one point, so we did get a little bit of Dracula's Daughter action at one point. I've talked about The Wolfman with Paul McComas. Of the big guns, okay, the big players, the A team. Yeah. I think we've at least touched on almost all of them. Okay. Some of the small, the B team, I suppose, like the Aquanetta, Jungle Girl movies.
Oh, sure.
I haven't really tackled a lot of those. I don't think we've talked about an actual Rondo Hatton film outside of the one Sherlock Holmes movie he turned up in.
Oh, okay.
The only reason we talked about that is because we were talking about Evelyn Ankers, who was also in that film. So I think there are a few stragglers out there.
Well, in the next 300, you'll probably hit the rest of them. So.
When I first started the show, I thought, these movies, they aren't making them anymore. So I've got a finite number, but I keep finding there are so many movies from these eras that I love so much that I think I'm not going to run out of material anytime soon.
One of the things I love about Monster Kid Radio is that, you'll post an episode and I'm like, what the hell movie is that? It's like, I've never even heard of this. What is that? And then I'll go in and it's like, oh, okay. I had no idea. Yeah, I'm sure there are thousands more that you have yet to cover. So.
Definitely.
So you should be good. Have you ever covered The Hideous Sun Demon?
I have not.
Because a couple of weeks back, I was talking about an actress named Nan Peterson who was on an episode. And she had a very short career, but she was in this movie in 1959 called The Hideous Sun Demon, right. Which I thought, that is a brilliant title. First of all, I love that so much.
Sure.
And I went looking and I found it on YouTube, and it's a terrible movie. It's not a B. It's a C or a D.
I love the monster in that, though. I love the way he looks.
Yeah.
I think, the how he gets to that point, maybe a little contrived, but the way the monster looks, I love that design.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of Robert Clark, who, didn't just star in that, but he also directed.
Right. So have you covered that?
I haven't covered it, but I have seen it, and I do kind of love it.
Well, maybe you should cover that then.
There we go. Should make a note here.
Okay. So the other aspect of the Howling Man. That
Oh, that's right. Right, we're talking about Twilight
that's right.
Zone.
That's
okay,
right.
yeah,
This
that's
is
right.
a Twilight Zone podcast, kids.
Okay, okay.
Believe it or not. Is one of the iconic bits of this episode is the transformation scene where the Howling Man actually becomes the full-on, very literal devil.
Sure.
And the way they shot this was he's walking behind a series of pillars, and they would cut at each pillar, so there was a makeup change at each pillar. So by the time you get to the end, he's the devil.
And if I remember right, isn't that a moving shot? Isn't the camera actually traveling as well?
Yeah, so they
yeah.
they did the same shot like 5-6 times, and each time they would redo it, he would be in a different stage of makeup. So when they cut it all together, he's transforming. And it's I mean, they could do that now and it would be seamless. I mean, it's pretty obvious what they're doing. Maybe it wasn't as obvious, on a 9-inch TV in 1960. Sure. But now I've been a Twilight Zone fan for a really long time, since I was in school. And I
really?
I know, believe it or not. And I actually didn't discover the Universal monsters till a little bit later. So I never made this connection, honestly, until probably I got the movies on DVD. That transformation scene is very, very similar to the transformation scene in Werewolf of London.
Yeah.
They do the same basic thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, Henry Hull's just walking behind a series of things, and each time they cut and his makeup has changed. I just wonder if you picked up on that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Certainly. Yeah, you can't, when you start talking about Universals and you're looking at other things and maybe kind of trying to keep the Universal in mind, you can't see a transformation and not think, hey, werewolf.
Right.
Wolfman. Now, with the Wolfman, it was a lot of lap dissolves. That's not what you see here. This is, like you said, every time he goes past another pillar, he's more advanced in the makeup. It is more Werewolf of London than the Wolfman. But yeah, certainly. I saw that. Sure.
Werewolf of London, by the way, is one of my favorites.
I don't think that's one I've covered, actually, now that I think about it. I don't think I've mentioned that one.
Oh, wow.
Much. Yeah. I need to.
It's kind of like the redheaded stepchild. Apologies to all the redheaded stepchildren out there saying that. But I actually enjoy it more than the werewolf or the Wolfman.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
Okay.
I mean, I think on a visual level, it's more interesting. There's just a lot of, I guess, eye candy, just in the, like in the plant, the whole thing they do with that, and just it's a lovely movie.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
Just on a visual level.
Yeah.
And, what I haven't done is watch the two back to back, and maybe I should do that because, I mean, the Wolfman's pretty great too. Mm-hmm. Not trying to disparage the Wolfman.
Oh no, I didn't think that at all. We'd have
the
words,
hate mail starts before the iTunes reviews start ranting about the Wolfman. I love the Wolfman as well. I love all monsters. But anyway, so you're obviously a big monster kid.
Sure.
Like that is your thing. You have done some stuff on Monster Kid Radio, and recently you did a Star Trek episode, where you did your top 3 favorite Star Trek aliens, which I've heard you do with other things. The Twilight Zone doesn't have a lot of monsters. In fact, when I was thinking about this and kind of getting this ready for this episode, I kind of really realized there's almost no monsters in the Twilight Zone, which, I mean, it's not really a monster thing. It's more of, a lot of it's more psychological or just fantasy supernatural stuff. But it seems like in 5 years, they would have had a few more monsters. It's kind of odd. I mean, they have some aliens. Yeah,
they have the alien stuff. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Outer Limits was more, and which is not, I mean,
100%.
Different beasts had more of that. But yeah, Twilight Zone was more of a get inside your head, kind of mess with you a little bit.
Yeah. But the Outer Limits, there's it's all monsters.
Right.
Have you ever covered any Outer Limits stuff?
Not yet.
I feel like I just keep suggesting episodes.
No, that's fine. I'm making notes.
Look, I'm just taking over your damn podcast, all right?
Oh, I don't know about that, but
The Outer Limits is my other favorite TV show.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it.
Well, hey, thanks.
I know.
You have been listening. Oh,
yeah, see.
It's very gratifying. Um, any final thoughts on the Howling Man?
On the Howling Man. Well, we've been talking about the Universal monsters and all that. We skipped something, and I'm sure you're going to cover it later in this, or maybe earlier in the episode. Mm-hmm. We have one of Universal's Dracula's himself in this.
It's in my notes, and you know what's funny is I had just scrolled down.
Oh, okay.
It's my first note in my thing.
We got John Carradine.
John Carradine.
Who I think doesn't get enough respect as Dracula for the Universal movies. It's a completely different Dracula. He's not Lugosi at all.
Right.
But I still dig him. I love his approach and that cockeyed top hat. I just love it.
Yeah, no, I think he's great. And I think, it's a thankless thing. I mean, you're following... Bela Lugosi's not, just an icon. The word icon seems a little low-key for him. I mean, he is Dracula. No matter how many Draculas we ever have, he will be Dracula.
For better or worse. Yeah, definitely.
Go-to Dracula. So to bring someone else into that, and we kind of already had Lon Chaney Jr. playing son of Dracula.
Right.
Which, is not really, it's not actually, but, it's kind of...
Is he or isn't he? Yeah.
But yeah, I think John Carradine is great as Dracula. I mean, it's a different take on it, and I think that's the best way to go. I think if he was just, mimicking Lugosi, I think that would have been a disaster.
It would have come across as a caricature, and that's not what you want for a character like that. I think it's unfortunate that in House of Frankenstein, he doesn't get a lot of interaction with the other monsters per se, but whatever, we'll take what we can get. Plus, because of all the legal stuff that goes on with Bela Lugosi's estate and his son and all that, a lot of times when Universal is promoting Dracula in like merchandising, lunchboxes, whatever, they'll use the Carradine Dracula as opposed to the Lugosi Dracula because of, again, the legal stuff behind the scenes. And I could geek out on that for hours, so I won't. But so you'll see John Carradine a lot of times represented whenever there's a book that comes out doing a retrospective of the Universal monsters, or a lunchbox, or a notebook. Anytime you see this, you'll see Carradine represented probably more in the merchandise than you ever did in the films.
Right, which is probably confusing for some people.
Sure.
Because I think probably a lot more people have seen Dracula than have seen House of Dracula. Mm-hmm. Because I think, you probably have like a lot of surface monster kids who just watch like the main ones.
Right.
They don't go deeper into the sequels. But I don't know how many people would even know that John Carradine actually played Dracula in 2 movies.
Well, and he only played him twice for Universal, but he would also play him again in other films. Billy the Kid versus Dracula, that's him.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He would turn up as Dracula in other films as well. But for Universal, he only did it twice. For Universal, Lugosi only did it twice.
Right. Wait.
Abbott and Costello.
Abbott and Costello. Yeah. Oh, and those, by the way, are also in these Blu-ray sets.
Okay.
They go all the way and put the Abbott and Costello movies into, which is really cool.
Right on.
So this really was a Twilight Zone segment. Believe it or not, everybody.
I really dug this episode. To kind of bring it back to Twilight Zone, I enjoyed this episode a lot. It's a fun, as fun as a spooky house movie can be.
Right.
It's written by Charles Beaumont, who I'm a big fan of.
Love Charles Beaumont.
Yeah, I mean he was taken from us way too soon. He is responsible for so much quality storytelling on television and in films. Yeah. And it's unfortunate he didn't have a chance to do more. But, it's a great little episode. The music is fantastic.
Yeah.
And even though it's not, a Hans Salter or anything like that, it still feels like a Universal monster movie with the music.
Yeah, it's kind of too bad that they didn't commission an original score for that. There are several Twilight Zones that have original scores. This one was Library Cues, but a lot of it is from earlier Twilight Zone episodes.
Well, they chose wisely because the music I thought fit perfectly for what they were doing.
That is a whole episode in itself. They did an amazing job of choosing Library Cues that not only fit really well, and not just in this episode, I'm talking in general in the whole series, but that actually were from like previous episodes that kind of had a thematic similarity.
Okay.
Things that probably audiences would have never picked up on. But it's kind of amazing. And I do talk about that some here and there on the podcast, just how they picked these the library cues were amazing. I mean, it's every bit as effective as an original score. But it would have been a kind of a neat thing if they had gotten somebody in there to do a more of an homage kind of a score.
Sure.
But this is a really atypical episode in general. I mean, there's no other Twilight Zone episode like this. And I'm assuming that the universal flair is intentional.
Sure.
It'd be kind of hilarious if it was an accident and nobody really knew what they were doing. But but I love it too. It's interesting. So Sci-Fi does these marathons, Sci-Fi Channel, and the most recent one they did, I think it was either the 4th of July or New Year's. They showed the entire series in order, which they'd never done before.
Wow.
But they kind of chop these things to hell, and apparently I don't watch them because I don't obviously need to.
Right.
I've got several.
Go back to our conversation about how many times we bought these things. Yeah.
I'm covered. But apparently for the Howling Man, they cut the transformation scene, which
How?
which is bizarre. And to me, it almost seems like, well, how did that even play? How did that even make sense? Of course, most people watching, already know what's going on. They've seen it before. But I thought, of all places to cut, like they cut that. And there was some discussion, I think, on a Facebook group about how there was concern about the religious aspect, that maybe people would be offended.
Really?
And I thought, that's ridiculous. This has existed for like 56, 57 years now. It's like, if someone was going to be offended by it, this would have already happened.
Yeah. What kind of step backward was that?
Yeah. It was crazy. I just thought, who is in charge of programming? Who is doing that?
I love that transformation scene. I can't imagine cutting it. I went back and I listened to a reading of the original story this is based on before watching the episode again. And there really is no transformation scene in the story itself.
Right.
It just, there's one moment of dialogue and boom, it's done.
Yeah.
So to have it kind of drawn out and done the way that it was done for a visual medium, I loved it.
And I think it's important, if again, they were intentionally going for, like a classic horror vibe, you have to see it.
Sure.
And that was kind of an argument in production because Beaumont's teleplay doesn't have a transformation either.
Okay.
What it has is the protagonist is chasing him and he jumps over a wall and escapes. And all that's left is like an imprint of a cloven hoof.
Ooh.
Which is cool in and of itself. If this were a more subtle kind of a story, it's not subtle. There's very little subtlety going on here. But yeah, so it's interesting that only happened like during the production where it was decided, no, hey, we need to actually show this. And I think either would have worked, but there is a certain payoff that you get by actually seeing it. But yeah, no, I love the Howling Man. I think it's like I said, it's very atypical. There's no other Twilight Zone even remotely like it. And there are other Devil episodes, but they're nothing like this. This is the only time that the show even attempts to present, the actual character, the actual persona of the devil in a sort of a serious way. The other times there's more of a comedic aspect to it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I love it. I think it's great. So this episode is being released the day before Thanksgiving. Oh my God.
Wow. Okay. You're way ahead on your recording schedule.
Well, we're already seeing Christmas things in stores now. So.
I know, man. It's killing me. There was a Christmas commercial on TV the other day, and I'm like, man.
Yeah, my daughter loves Christmas, and she's like, why don't we just skip everything and go to Christmas? I'm like, that's horrible. That's...
Go to your room.
You are a product of like these modern times because that's just awful. When I was a kid, like Christmas started when Thanksgiving ended.
Right. Well, and for me, my birthday is 2 weeks before Christmas. So growing up,
oh my God,
my family did not do anything for Christmas until after my birthday because they didn't want me to feel slighted. So I had like a 2-week window for Christmas, and that was fine. That's how I grew up. That's what I'm used to.
My sister was born the day after Christmas.
Oh,
so she always had more presents. Because my birthday, I was born on Thanksgiving.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So by the time we get to Christmas, it's like it's been a month. I'm over my presents. if I haven't broken them yet or whatever. And then, yeah, my sister's getting more presents. So that was always kind of a little point of contention for me. But in retrospect, it was a much bigger issue for her because she's being overshadowed by, the biggest holiday of all time. So,
Right.
So sorry, Karen. I feel your pain now. A little late. But, well, Derek, I want to thank you very much for coming on.
Sure.
Yeah, we didn't talk much Twilight Zone, but, that's fine. I kind of knew it would go sideways.
In a delightful way, though. I mean, I could talk this stuff for hours. You were saying this is going to come out before Halloween?
It's coming out, the day before Halloween.
Okay.
So, do you dress up?
I have in the past. I work a day job that has nothing to do with podcasting, unfortunately. And for years, the office where I worked, business center, call center environment, we could dress up. And they would do costume contests and the whole bit. And up until, and not trying to brag or anything, but up until the time I started working there, nobody went whole hog the way that I traditionally have done. See, I used to think I was going to be a filmmaker when I grew up, and I did a lot of special makeup effects.
Okay.
So I would do, these elaborate makeups coming into work. I'd dress up as a zombie. I did zombies repeatedly, actually, now that I think about it. But I would do these like weird scarecrow killer type things, mad scientist things with a syringe stuck on my head. I mean, it's really elaborate stuff. And I would always win the costume contest. And I loved it. And typically it was like movie tickets or something. And I think people enjoyed seeing the new weird thing Derek did.
Mm-hmm.
Then they stopped doing the costume contest. I don't know if it was a budget cut or whatever. People could still dress up. But the contest part of it was gone. And I just decided, you know what? I'm just not going to do it anymore. Because it's a lot of work, man. I mean, I love doing it. I love the smell of latex and all that other stuff. But
if they're not going to give you a prize for it, then you're just not going to do it.
That's right.
Well, I work in an office environment as well, but we are I'm being a little cagey on the details here. We are not allowed to dress up.
Okay.
We are a professional environment, and
yeah.
we that is not something that would be appropriate under our current leadership. So, we don't get to do that.
We for the past couple of years, actually, they've told us no dressing up. Because we did move buildings, and now we are in an environment where other parts of our business are in the same building as us. So we have to be a little bit more careful. There was an email that went out and said, okay, you can dress up, but nothing really tasteless and no masks. Like, well, I'm just going to try to do what I do every year. I'm going to try to take the day off if I can afford it. And I'm just going to sit around and watch monster movies at home all day.
Nice.
And I think this year, was it last year that I went through and tried to pick monster movies that I hadn't seen yet, that I knew I should have, but I just never got around to watching.
Oh, that's good.
I think this year I'm going to crack open a lot of the Blu-rays. There's been a lot of Blu-rays this year for movies that have come out on DVD before or have never come out before, like The Monster of Piedras Blancas. I'm eager to check out the blue on that and see how it compares to the really grainy copy I already have. So I may end up doing that this year, but no dressing up unless, I don't know. It's tough.
No, it's been a great few months as far as Blu-ray. I mean, Criterion put out both Carnival of Souls and Cat People.
It's been great for them. It's been bad for our wallets.
Well, yeah. In fact, with Criterion's, I usually wait for the twice yearly Barnes & Noble $20 sale. That's usually when I get my Criterion's.
It's a good time to do it.
But I had to have these.
Oh, sure.
Could not get these. So
Cat People is gorgeous. I did talk about that one on Monster Kid Radio, and that Blu-ray is beautiful.
Yeah, mine just showed up in the mail like a couple of days ago. So my plan later today is to crack that open, and I'm going to watch it.
Yeah, there you go. And I've got the Carnival of Souls. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm going to crack it open and watch it here soon, because I've got Rich Chamberlain from the Monster Movie Kid website coming on to Monster Kid Radio, and we're going to talk about Carnival of Souls.
Right on. I love Carnival of Souls.
It's a great film.
It's one of those films that shouldn't be as good as it is.
No, and really, speaking of Twilight Zone stuff, I mean, that has a very Twilight Zone quality to it, I feel like.
It does. In fact, I'm talking about that in a little bit of depth in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Because I'll be covering the episode The Hitchhiker.
Ooh, okay.
Which is basically the same story as Carnival of Souls. It's more or less the same thing. Protagonist kind of running from something, this apparition that keeps appearing. Turns out to be basically the angel of death. She's been dead the whole time, kind of thing.
Spoiler.
Spoiler. I'm probably going to cut this. Just
And the movie's 50. The show's what, 50 years old at this point? Come on.
yeah. No, I mean, I'm probably going to cut this part just because I'm going to be talking about it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Oh no, we do spoilers. I mean, there's no.
Yeah.
I probably should at least say that at some point. Like, look, spoiler alert. There.
Sure.
But yeah, if I was talking about like a brand new like Star Wars Star Wars movie, like where there's a big revelation that happens, probably spoiler tag that. But
Sure.
Something like this. My presumption is that everybody that hears this podcast has already seen it, because why else would you be listening to it?
Right.
But anyway, well, Derek, I want to thank you for coming on. This was great. I really appreciate it. It seems like every time I have somebody on, it really kind of legitimizes this whole thing a little bit.
Oh, come on now. No, I'm not going to call myself, a veteran or whatever. I've been podcasting for years, and I've listened to a lot of different podcasts, not just in the genres that I love, but, in some genres that people probably don't expect me to enjoy. I listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts, a lot of writing podcasts, a lot of science and history podcasts. So, I mean, I've listened to a lot of different types of podcasts, and I feel like yours is solid. Your production, your attention to detail when it comes to your production, your putting everything together, and the little bits that you throw in every once in a while, your wife's comments. I mean, those are fantastic. It gives the show personality. I'm loving what you're doing. And listeners, this is how you get on a show. You go on, and this is how you get invited back, because then you start, blowing smoke up the. I'm sorry. No, in all seriousness, no. I really do enjoy what you're doing.
Well, thank you. That's really good to hear. Yeah, like I said, the feedback's been nice. But it's a lot of work. Not trying to make anybody feel bad, listeners. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to guilt you here. But this podcast, it's a lot. It takes and I suppose over time I'll probably refine, the workflow and kind of get it down to something manageable. But right now, I mean, it's taking a lot of my time to do this, and it's really in the post-production aspect. It's putting it all together, and but I'm a little bit meticulous, and it's my own fault, because I could probably throw it together and probably nobody would notice any difference.
Hey, you know what? I mean, your first listener is yourself, though, really, and you want to please yourself when it comes to. Welcome to the How to Do a Podcast. No, I mean, your first listener, your first. You're your first, critic. You're the person that you've got to please first. If you're not pleasing yourself, then what's the point? And wow, that could go somewhere else altogether. Speaking of other kinds of podcasts,
this just turned into something else entirely. So we're gonna cut Derek off.
Yeah, why don't we stop? I'm gonna go watch a monster movie.
Right? Yeah. Again, Derek, thanks a lot for popping in. We really appreciate it, and this has been fun.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's been an honor.
Happy Halloween.
Hey, you too, man.
Right. Cool. All right.
I have no idea where that came from.
That was awesome.
Wow.
It unexpectedly took a strange, dark turn.
Well, welcome to the Twilight Zone.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, that was great.
I have a coworker who, anytime something odd or weird or she doesn't understand happens, she just goes do 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 do. And I asked her one day, so you a big Twilight Zone fan? No, I never really watched it. Like, wow, that's how pervasive that is in our pop culture, and that's great.
Right.
Too bad she doesn't watch it, but Yeah,
it's in the zeitgeist, and people don't get it. I mean, they just think it means, something weird, and that's, I guess that's technically accurate, but I mean, it's funny. It's like most people that make those references have no idea.
Right.
It's like the whole, like To Serve Man, it's a cookbook thing. Like, I think everybody gets that joke, but I don't think anybody knows what it is. I mean,
right.
It's just funny how those things exist. They kind of just hang there in society. And of course, for like the true fans, it's like, it grates on you a little bit. It's like,
yeah, a little bit. With October, being what it is, and Halloween and all that, I get to smile more because I get to see more monster stuff out there.
Oh, sure.
And my coworkers, they know that I'm the guy they can come ask monster movie questions about, or if they want to come by my desk, they'll see, my monster stuff all over the place, which is there all year round. But October seems to be the year they actually care.
I'm glad you said that because I've actually been meaning to. I'm gonna try to make this short because this could be a long story. Because I used to have our extra bedroom was my office.
Okay.
And we had moved around some, and I didn't have that for a few years. But where we are now, I finally had it again, and I was loving it. And I had all my stuff out, my action figures. And one of the things that I have is they have those little, I'm blanking on they're just miniature little like statues, but they have big heads.
Okay. Yeah.
So they did a whole line of those.
I've got them.
And then they did the color ones, but then they did a whole set of them in black and white.
That's the set I've got.
Oh, same here.
Yeah.
Same here. So I had them all lined up on a couple shelves in my office. And now they're in a box in the garage because I don't have my office anymore.
Sure.
So I was thinking I need to dig those out and take them to work because I have a whole little shelf at work that I could just line them up on. And this would be and I keep forgetting to do that. My stepson and his wife and baby are currently residing in there.
Oh, okay.
So my grandchild. So it's probably worth,
priorities.
Equitable. But they're supposed to be moving out in a couple months. And so I'll be getting that back. So I'm very excited. I haven't had 5.1 for like over a year, because that's where I had my whole setup in there. So there's a lot of things I'm looking forward to in the next couple months. It's like Halloween, Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving because I love turkey, and it's my birthday. And
there you go.
Well, it's around my birthday because it changes every year, but every so many years it actually falls on Thanksgiving. Then you got Christmas and then New Year's, and then I get my office back. So it's like that's like a whole holiday in and of itself.
Hey, there you go.
Very excited. Because I like my space. See, right now, I am in a corner in the bedroom. That's where my setup is right now. It's just the corner of the master bedroom. It's depressing. What? I want to be surrounded by my stuff. We have this big shelf over our bed. So on my end of it, which kind of hangs over the desk a little bit, I have a few things. I have like my Robbie the Robot bobblehead, and I've got my Universal Monster movies, my DVDs and Blu-rays just lined up. So I can just kind of look up at them. And anyways, soon I will have everything back again. Everything in its proper place. Okay. So Monster on the Campus.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope. Let me just say before we start this, I hope I contribute something because
that'll be fine. I'm looking forward to it.
I have a couple pages of notes, but
okay.
But we'll roll. We'll see.
Okay. You need a break or anything to refresh a coffee or anything?
Actually, that's a good idea. And then plus, maybe I can then stop the recording.
Okay.
Because I don't know, because this file is going to be gigantic by the time it's done. So
okay.
So why don't do you want to just call me back in like 5?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the end of that might have been a bit confusing. It was actually a dual recording session. After we finished up our talk for my podcast, we recorded another long conversation for his podcast, in which we talked about Universal's Monster on the Campus. That episode should be coming out later this week, so check out Monster Kid Radio for that. I want to thank Derek for taking the time to participate in this brand new, untested, and totally amateur podcast. And he was actually a great source of encouragement and inspiration during the tumultuous year plus it took to get this thing off the ground. So for that, Derek, thank you so much, man. And to all of you, I hope you enjoyed this little peek behind the Between Light and Shadow curtain. We'll see you next time. Happy Halloween.
between light and shadow.